Hey, folks, welcome back. Excuse the beard. It's been a long weekend. Trust me, you don't want to know. And you're not here for that anyway. You're here for episode number 6 of the UX+1 podcast. And today, it's awesome. I'm going to just get this out of the way right now. It is awesome. Our guest today is a technical recruiter. The stuff she is going to tell you, the things you're going to hear, the value you are going to get out of this episode, it is phenomenal, right? You don't want to miss a minute of this. We usually edit these segments down for time because they get kind of long. We barely edited a single minute out of this episode, right? We didn't want you to miss anything of what you are going to hear. This episode is off the chart. You're going to love it. You ready? Let's do it.
Check it out.
If this is your first time joining us, welcome. On this show, we discuss various topics under the umbrella of user experience and product design. And we have a very special format to this show, and that is who we've invited as our plus one. A plus one is our guest. These are the folks who are having some difficulty in their UX career search. We take a look at their materials, like their resume, their portfolio, and we give them some expert advice and help to get them past their difficulties, get them past their challenges, and hopefully see them higher. And a very quick thing to point out, if you are listening to the audio stream of this podcast, please note that we do have the video version that is on YouTube. You can find that at uxdesignjob.com/podcast. We have the video version in case anyone wants to follow along with the guidance that we are giving our guests as we go through their resume and portfolio. So just want to make sure everybody knows that. If you're interested in appearing on our show, we'll have some information on how to do that at the end. Until then, let's get into today's show. All right, everyone. Today's episode, we've got something special today. We have our plus one expert guest. And joining us today is Miss Rachel Burress. I should have asked you before we started, is your last name pronounced Burress or is it Burress?
Burress, yeah.
Burress, okay. So
Yeah.
First screw up of the show, but we'll keep that in. It's all right. We'll keep it real here. Rachel is a technical recruiter, and we're going to be talking a little bit about how she does her work and how that translates into what our listeners who are designers and researchers and anyone else interested can see what it really takes to be found by someone who's looking for them from a recruiting standpoint. So Rachel, let's start by just giving everyone a quick introduction about yourself, and then we'll jump into some questions that we have. Does that sound okay?
Sounds great. Sounds
Go ahead.
great. Well, awesome. Well, I'm very happy to be here. And like Corey said, my name's Rachel Burress, and I got into IT recruiting pretty recently, but I think kind of like most recruiters, you kind of fall into it. I don't know too many that had the intention to be a recruiter outside of, going to college and that kind of thing. But I found my way to recruiting it's a long story, kind of how I got there, but COVID being the catalyst for that one. But I found my way to recruiting because first off, I tried sales and that felt incredibly soulless. So I found my way to recruiting to try that one on for size. And I loved recruiting. I enjoy helping folks find the jobs that they want. And so, here to share any kind of knowledge that I have to help folks be able to be seen or to not be seen by recruiters. So I am thrilled to kind of share my knowledge and help out listeners, whether they're senior, junior, or mid-level. I'm excited to be here for that one.
Fantastic. Thank you. And in the spirit of full transparency, we should state that there is a bit of fraternization between Rachel and our friend Antonio. Would you mind cluing us in on what that is exactly?
Yeah. So Antonio is, I call him Nino, so you'll have to excuse me if I call him Nino. But Nino is my partner. We have a house together, and Yeah, so he's my partner and he kind of let me know. I've been, he's told me a lot about this show and I was like, very interested. I was like, well, I think I might have some things that folks might find helpful. So he was like, well, maybe we ought to do this.
Yeah.
So he had talked to Corey about it and here I am.
Awesome. Awesome. Power of the network. We appreciate that.
It's true.
All right. So let's start with the nature of your recruiting, right? So you work as a vendor recruiter, am I correct on that?
Sort of, yeah.
Okay.
So I work for OpenArc, and we are a software firm. However, we have one side that does the software development, and then my side where I work on the recruiting. We staff for our in-house roles, but we also staff for folks around Pittsburgh. So we're a little bit of agency, we're a little bit of in-house recruiting. So I found my way to OpenArc because, as I was mentioning, I kind of transitioned from sales into something else that felt a little bit more meaningful. So I found my way to OpenArc because of the style of recruiting that they do. So on their website, and also the way that I've been trained in the way that we operate at OpenArc is with a candidate first approach. So that might be a little bit different than some of the experiences that I'm sure everybody has had here.
Yeah, we're going to get into that. We're going to say, why does everyone hate recruiters? No, we'll see how deep we get with that. All right. But let's keep
we
going.
can definitely talk about that.
Yeah.
But the reason why I love working for OpenArc is because they take the approach where, it's not like where we have a job and then we try and find the candidate. We do that, but we also try and work with folks long term. We try and find out, what are you looking for? What makes a good fit? What are some of the goals that you have? What are some benefits that you need? Like, we really try and work with people long term. So even if I work with you on a job that isn't going to end up being like the one, I still am going to work with you long term. I'm going to do what I can to help you out. For example, we work with lots of folks to help them negotiate or kind of inform them on the contract side of work or the contract to hire. A lot of folks don't know about that. So, I like to position myself as a resource to folks, even if I am, not going to be able to supply you the job that is it for you. I definitely try and help candidates where I can and give them resources where I can. So to me, that makes the process a lot more human-centered, and it makes it a lot less punch and stamp and move on, punch, stamp, move on. It's a lot more meaningful, and it's a lot more empathetic. So I appreciate that approach, and that's why I enjoy doing what I do at OpenArc. But I do know that in other instances, it can be a whole lot less empathetic.
That is so different from most of the interaction that I've had with most recruiters, right? And I won't say all of them have been terrible. Obviously, I've worked with some pretty fantastic recruiters over my career. But the number of folks who will reach out to me with one job, right? And if that one job doesn't work out, or if I'm not interested, you'll never hear from them again, right? Never, ever. And that's the usual interaction. Right? Now, there have been a few who take the approach that you kind of mentioned, right? Where it's actually relationship building that is part of the work of recruiting a candidate. And those have been some of the best people that I've worked with. And I have a strong feeling that you're going to be hit up quite a bit after this show. So be prepared for that. Folks are going to be wanting to talk to you. If you don't mind telling us, there's been some, and I know this is different for every recruiting agency and every recruiting in every firm, the manner and how you're compensated, if you don't mind sharing us with that. Is it based on who you place or who you speak to? Can you just kind of clue us in on that?
Absolutely. Yeah. So at OpenArc, we kind of take a reverse approach. So naturally, my job is metric based. So that's how we measure success. That's how we are compensated. That's kind of how that's structured. However, at OpenArc, we do it in reverse. So to give you an example, the metrics that I am evaluated on is it starts at placements, which is, like if, let's say I was talking to Antonio and we went through an interview process together, he got the job accepted. That's a placement for me. And that's how I ultimately make my money. So but the way that we work is in reverse. So we have metrics for meetings that we hold with candidates. We have metrics for client submissions, which is when I would take like your resume, we would chat, I would talk about with you things that you were looking for. I put that application together and then it's client submitted. So that means that your application goes to the firm that we're working with. So that's what we're evaluated on. Now at OpenArc, we're more evaluated on placements. So it's not like, if you don't make a certain amount of client submissions a week, well, you get, beat over the head for it. We work as more like we're trying to get people to the jobs where, they're placed. That's kind of how we work. So as far as like metrics and things like that, yeah, that's a part of the job. But the nice part about OpenArc is that they definitely try and have some flexibility with that. So they understand like things happen, stuff falls through the cracks. So there's a lot of like leeway with it. However, yeah, we're working for placements and that's how we do make our money ultimately. So I don't make money off of talking to you. I don't make money off of like meetings. I only make money when we place you, which if you consider the whole process is a very lengthy process. So it starts out with I'll just run through kind of how it would look. So let's say I found you and I found you on LinkedIn. So I would message you and say, hey, I have this job. Your technical skills seem like a great fit, but let's have a chat and let's talk about what you're looking for. So then we'd set up a phone call. I'd, chat with you about what you want. And then, if I do have something currently, I would send you that job description. And so what's different about OpenArc is we always try and meet our candidates over video. For multiple reasons. The first one being we want to put a name with a face. We want to get to know you. We want to work with you long term. So by meeting people over video, that allows us to kind of create that connection. And we used to do this in person, actually, until obviously after COVID, when everything went remote. We actually used to just staff for Pittsburgh firms, and we would staff for in-person jobs, that kind of thing. So we would actually go and have coffee with people, meet with people in person, have chats with them. And then after we would, meet in person or have this video, then we would submit you to the role and we would work with you during the process. So we would work with you on the interview. So like, for example, for the first interview, let's say it was technical. Well, I would say, hey, Corey, I have some interview prep. I'm going to give you some prep, work with you and, kind of make you as competitive as possible for this. So we would work through the process together for how many rounds. And, it could be 1, could be 5, could be 7, however many interviews they want to have. So I would work with you through that process. And then we would get to the end and I would say, okay, hey, normally for us, the way it works is our clients tell us like, hey, we want to make this person offer. And we make a verbal offer to the candidate. So at the end, I would say, hey, they want to make you an offer. We would discuss anything that you needed, like, do you have enough information? Do you want to know more about this part of the company, benefits, or the hiring manager? Like any questions you might have, we want to make sure that you have everything you need to make a good decision. Then once we do that, you say, hey, I've got everything I need. This money's good. I want to go forward. Then that's when we would let them know, like, yes, send them an offer letter. Then that becomes a placement, but then you also have to start and then work the job. So throughout that process, that's when we get to make our money there at the end. So it's a lot of work and it is a long process to get to that moment. And a lot of things can go wrong or they can go really right. So it's a lot of work to go into that to get to that end point for that.
Gotcha. And the placement with regard to when that person is placed and when you're actually compensated, that's not necessarily the same thing, right? The person needs to be on the job for some amount of time.
Yes. Great question. So so the way that it works is like we consider it a placement when you accept. However, it kind of varies depending on our contract with the actual client, but sometimes it could be, most of the time, it's about 3 months. You've worked there 3 months is when we get the commission for that. So it wouldn't just be like, okay, you had your first week, great, we're paying you. And the candidate has to stay for the 3 months until we can get that commission. So it's not just like, bam, done, off, give me my money, So it's definitely more of a long-term process.
Gotcha. Okay. Love it.
And does that commission, sorry, I'm jumping in. Does that commission come from your company or from like the salary you negotiated with the candidate?
Ooh, great question. Yes.
You can say
yeah.
it. It's okay.
Yeah. So the commission comes from my company, but my company receives a cut that's kind of predetermined with the client. And that changes based on how much your in salary ends up being. So I know with some recruiters, maybe their structure is a little bit different, but I know a lot of the qualms with recruiters is that, well, they're trying to hold me to this spot. Like they're trying to only, it really doesn't behoove us to do that. The more money we get you means the more money we get. So a lot of times, that's not what what I'm out to do. I'm out to get you the most money possible and ultimately that gets me more commission. So yeah, it is based on how much your in salary is.
Okay, sounds great. I just feel like this process is not transparent because I've been hit up by so many recruiters, all different colors of the rainbow. I've seen it all. And usually they just drop and run, like Corey said. But I feel like that part of the process is almost always a taboo. They give you the salary, then you're like, what's going on with it? What do you get? What do I get? So yeah, I was just curious to know.
Yeah,
absolutely.
and I'd always considered or wondered is like maybe it's because that recruiter is in the middle somewhere that it feels like these salary ranges overall are lower when I talk to recruiters. That may not always be the case, but I think on average, when I presented with a contract or a contract to hire role from a recruiter, that yearly range seems to just be lower, right? It could just be my experience. I don't know about anyone else's.
Mine is usually higher. That's why I'm like, what's going on?
Yeah, I haven't seen that. Yeah, no, I've generally seen that it's lower on average. Yeah.
Okay.
I think I'm hidden to recruiters because I don't get hit up that much by them.
I think you need to be active on LinkedIn because you hate it.
Yeah, I don't like it.
Antonio said this before. He said this before, and when he said it the first time, I was a little skeptical, right? And now I just straight up don't believe him. I think he's yeah. I know what's going on here now. Antonio's hiding in another room somewhere, and he's got the phone all upstairs. He's like, "So hey, you what's the salary range? He's all cool. What kind of benefits y'all have over there?" He doesn't want Rachel to know what's going on. That's what's happening.
That unlimited PTO.
You know what? You're right.
Tell me about that 10% travel. Where can I
free
go?
lunch? I want that DoorDash. Come on.
Oh my God.
It's so interesting. But I'm glad that you bring up contract work because I think there's a lot of differing information out there. So I'll tell you the way that I work. And I'm glad that you mentioned that, contract work that you were paid more because that's generally how we work. So if someone was interested in a contract, so let's say, Corey, you were trying to find a job for $150K. So I would be like, all right, that's what you're targeting. Well, because this is a contract position, it's going to be, 3 to even a year, 3 to 6 months, something like that. I want to compensate you for the fact that this is a smaller contract. You wouldn't have as much time working with this company. So generally what I do is if you're looking for 150, I'd say, okay, let's shoot for more like 165. I usually divide that by 2,080, which gives me your hourly rate. That's usually what I do because I always want to send people at a higher rate than what they're targeting. So not only is it worth their time, but it compensates them well for the fact that they might not have benefits or they might not have PTO. So I always try and compensate people for the fact that they're willing to do contract work. So that's interesting that you've been approached and that it's always been lower. That's really interesting.
I think it's probably to do with the quality of the firm that reached out to me. Because I get hit up a lot from a lot of no-name brand firms, right? From people that I've never heard of, and you look them up and their website looks kind of sketchy. So that's probably a big part of it too.
Yeah.
I wanted to circle back real quick to the compensation part. Do you think, you're saying that there's a time frame between when you place someone and when you get paid, and you need to make sure that they stay at that job for 3 to 6 months or whatever it is. Is that added incentive to make sure that you're placing people with a company that fits them? Is that added incentive for you? Is that they're purposefully set up by the firm to make sure you're placing people at the right spot, because, you know, you could place someone and they find out it's, you know, not a fit for them and they leave in a month. And then I guess you don't get that commission, right? So
yeah, you don't get that commission. No, I think it's more set up to protect the clients we work with. I think it's more set up for that, because there have been plenty of instances where we've placed someone and the day before they were about to start, they were like, sorry, I have another job. I'm taking it. I don't need this anymore. Not starting my first day. So there's been plenty of times like that. So I think that's more to safeguard our clients than necessarily make sure that we get the right fit. I mean, that's definitely our intention, to avoid things like that. But I think it's more to safeguard our, you know, the firms we work with.
How about you take us through what you do to find a candidate?
Yeah, yes. Are you talking about on the dashboard, the LinkedIn
Yes,
dashboard?
we'd love to see that.
Ooh,
Yeah.
okay. All right. Let me try to share screen here. I would absolutely love to do that. Now let me make sure I get the right screen. Now this is where Nino comes in, because
Just go help her.
Yeah.
I run over to his office all the time. Like, Nino, I can't fix this this
Yeah,
thing
go
on
ahead and do
Word.
it.
Why is
Yeah.
it not working?
Go ahead. We're gonna catch it on camera. Go ahead.
I dare you. Wow. That's too funny.
This is
breaking the fourth wall.
Yeah.
It's really
That was quick.
great.
Hollywood movie magic right here. Y'all seeing
it's
in real time.
Okay. Awesome. Now let's see here. Thanks, Nino. Perfect. Okay. Can we all see this here?
Yep, got it.
Right. Cool. Okay. So I'm very excited about this. So excited to show you guys kind of what I can see here. And you might have to end up kind of blotting out what pops up for people's information. But
sure.
So this is where I basically live my life. I also work in ZipRecruiter. I also work in Dice. Both of those two things, they're great places to find candidates, but LinkedIn is obviously the best place to go. So this is what I can see on my LinkedIn recruiter. So here is where I go for a Boolean search. If anyone's familiar here, that's basically how you find keywords out of a job description. That way you can search people's, resumes or LinkedIn's, and then you can find people that have those skills. That way you can contact them about it. So when I see a job description and they say we want skills with Figma, or we want Adobe, this is where I would go to find candidates. So there's an evaluation stage with the job description. And just an aside here, one of your questions about what candidates can do to disqualify themselves, often enough, I see people counting themselves out by just reading job descriptions. Don't do that. There are maybe 2 or 3 firms we work with that are hard sticklers for years of experience or a degree. There aren't many places that are like that. Yes, they do exist. But when you look at job descriptions, take everything in it as I might not need to have this to get this job. Don't rule yourself out based on your confidence, based on your years of experience. Don't do that, because there are often plenty of times where people who have 2 years of experience are getting jobs where they're must have 5. Don't bother, nothing less. Don't rule yourself out based on that. I see a lot of candidates that do that. It would be nice to fully fit a job description, but that's in a perfect world. So don't rule yourself out based on that. But I digress. So here you'll see on the left, I have a lot of different options for criteria. So, for example, most likely to engage, that's going to pretty much give me all the candidates in LinkedIn. Now, I always click open to work because I don't want to annoy people who aren't looking for jobs. Also, don't want to waste my time, because if you're not looking for a job, I don't want to bother. So I always click open to work. Now, this is where you can put job titles of folks, whether it's in a current position or a past position. So for example, if I'm looking for a DevOps engineer, but that's something that they've done in the past, this is where I type that. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, one quick one about the open to work. I'm glad you said that, because I had posted something about this a couple months ago. Please turn on your open to work. For everyone who's listening, if you want a job, please turn on your freaking open to work thing. You should not be that should not be something you should be second guessing. And Rachel, let me ask from your perspective, what does it mean to you when you see someone's profile picture that has the little green banner on it?
Oh, that means everything. That means I can talk to them. That means that they aren't going to basically, it lets me know that it's not going to be a waste of my time to contact you, because often there is so many people that I need to talk to during the day to make myself successful. So usually it's about time management. So if your open to work is not on, I'm not going to contact you, because it won't be worth my time to try and convince you to be interested in a job. It's just not going to be worth it. So if you don't have your open to work,
Gotcha.
I'm not gonna talk with you. So
Gotcha.
That's the way I operate. Now, there are some jobs we get where they're so specific that we want to target people who have these great, which is probably some of the things that you're getting solicited for, where you have skills and, you're kind of the unicorn. So there are plenty of recruiters out there that even if you don't have that on there, they're going to want to talk to you because they're looking to fill this position. So, it's a double-edged sword there. But
Gotcha.
Yeah, so then open to work, job titles aren't as much. Now, this is the part that I think is really going to just blow your socks off.
This kind of blew my mind when she gave me a sneak peek last night.
It's crazy. I've never seen this.
I'm very excited about this. So let me say this for the junior candidates. If you are in high cost of living areas, it is going to be extra difficult for you. And I'll tell you why. When I get a job description, and they always let us know kind of their estimate on the salary. So let's say I have a job and it's paying about $80K, which is pretty decent if you're a 1 to 2 year UX person. I can go on here and I can say, okay, well, I know people in California can't afford that. So I can easily type in California and I say, I don't want anyone that lives in California. And that's automatically going to weed out everybody that's there. So generally, there are great opportunities out there. There are wonderful things. Might not be the most slam dunk pay that there ever was, but as a junior person, you kind of have to take what you have to get. But I'm automatically going to go in here and be like, Arizona's pretty expensive too. Take that out. Boston. I don't want anybody from Boston there, that we won't be able to afford them. I can go here.
We can't deal with people from Boston either.
Stop it.
Yeah. Can't do it.
Yeah, just take out the expensive parts. Yeah. So this part is what I find to be probably the most beneficial to junior candidates. If you're in an expensive place, I can already let you know that you should be targeting companies that are equally as expensive places. Otherwise, you're kind of wasting your time, because they are going to weed you out because they know they can't afford you. So if you guys talk to juniors that are in California, they should really only be looking for places in California or in New York, because it's just the fact of the matter that they have to have more pay to live where they are. And we know that the opportunities we have aren't going to afford them that. So we can just weed them out automatically.
Yeah, interesting.
So
that's interesting because I'm from Canada, and the guys always make fun of me, but I get almost, I could say every day I could get a recruiter in my DM. But funny enough is I go through the process and out of nowhere, they're like, oh, I didn't even realize where you live. Yeah, we can't hire you. So that's why it's interesting to see your perspective. I guess people don't work like you, or they're not smart like you, but they never seem to get where I live. And I live on the Quebec side. It's next to Ottawa in Canada. And at the very end, they're like, yeah, we can't hire you because we don't have permission to pay you since you're in a different province. I'm like, did you not see that?
Right. That's definitely something that I would have immediately considered, because you would have to have a TN visa to work in the United States, which I understand isn't very hard to get, but it's still a process. You still have to get that. So,
but yeah, even recruiters in Canada, because the provinces are different, but they just get to the end. They're like, yeah, sorry. I don't know if it's a thing they do that to get those numbers, I'm not sure. That's a question for you.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
curious about it.
Try to bump those metrics.
Yeah,
Mhm.
because at the end they're like, yeah, sorry, bye.
Yeah, absolutely. They might be more evaluated on how many submissions they get and not necessarily placements.
Gotcha.
So yeah, that might be the drive behind that, is just trying to get someone who's interested to pass along the resume, to check that box, to include that number. That might be what it is as well. But like, for example, like I can put in the US, oops, not the Virgin Islands, although that would be cool. Yeah, I can choose the United States and just
Okay.
have folks in the United States. However, still people will pop up from other countries. I'm not really sure how, but there's still a few in there. But yeah, I can choose the United States and try and weed those folks out to obviously not waste their time. But I'll take a second here, and I wish you'll have to work on this one, Corey. I'm not really sure how you're going to do this, but if you look at this particular person at the top here, I don't know if I should say their name, this individual at the top, if you see right here on their spotlights how they have open to work, I can hover over open to work and I can see all of the jobs that they're interested in. So if you're just putting on there like junior UX, that's where I'm going to know, like, okay, well, that's the kind of job that they want. This more mid to senior position probably won't be for them. So I can look on here at the job titles you're interested in. I can also look at the job types. So are you interested in contract work? Would you just want full-time work? I can see that on here. Also with locations, which really doesn't matter much anymore, but also the kind of workplaces, hybrid, remote, all that kind of thing. I can see that on here. And that's often where I first start when I'm looking at candidates, is I go to this, like, what jobs are they looking for? You know, maybe not so much with UX designers, but like with software developers, like if you have a background in React, do you want to work on the front end or are you full stack? You know, this kind of clues me into where you would like to work, because I care about preferences. So I'm going to look at what you want out of a job. So this is a good spot to put what you are looking for as a UX designer. And I would also make sure to put like UX designer, UX specialist, like make sure you put all the variations of the words so where you're not left out of a particular search. You know, when you put it into the job title up here, that's where, you know, these sorts of things come in handy. So just make sure that folks are putting what they're looking for there.
Got it. Interesting. Cool.
Yeah. Now let's see here. I can even go to companies. So sometimes this is really helpful for me if, let's say like Coinbase, I think they were a part of a big layoff recently. I can go to the company and just search Coinbase, and I can have all the people who are open to work on Coinbase. I can go through and talk with them about particular jobs because I know that they might be looking for one here soon. So that part is big. Now, keywords is where I always go and put in stuff for my Boolean search. So like Figma, let's go with that. So I'll put in Figma, and that'll whittle down all the candidates that have put that they have experience using Figma. So here, you know, as you can see, I can have several UX designers pop up, but I can expand on this as well to put in different things that have to do with the job description. So then people will be, they'll be added to the search based on those experiences. Employment type, that's where, you know, obviously I can choose. Now, this is where it gets kind of hard for me as a recruiter. And this is probably something you guys don't know about recruiting, but there is a plethora of candidates out there that are not who they say they are. They are a fake, they're assuming a fake identity. And it literally happened to me 2 months ago. So that's where folks who do not have their US citizenship or they have their green card, there is such good money to be made working, obviously, in this industry that folks will falsify their identity, that they'll take someone who has, you know, who is a US citizen and assume their name, assume everything else about that person, and then say they're a citizen and go through these processes. And it works. There are plenty of circumstances that I can tell you where there are people who aren't who they say they are, who get a job being who they aren't. So a lot of times when we are talking to candidates, and that's one of the reasons why we do video meetings as well, because on here, if your picture on your LinkedIn doesn't match the person that I'm looking at on my video call, I'm going to know this could be a little suspicious. This could cause problems down the line. And this literally happened to me last month. I can tell you guys that story a bit later if you're interested.
Okay.
But oftentimes, folks who falsify kind of their profiles are open to like contract work. So sometimes if I click on contract work, it only gives me folks that are of that, or there are more folks that have like their H-1B or their EDA visa. So folks that we can't always work with. So certain companies provide sponsorship. So those folks that have those visas only can work for companies that provide that sponsorship. So that's the reason why people falsify, because they want to be considered for all the opportunities that are out there. Because there are a lot of folks who get taken advantage of because they're in those sort of situations. So they get paid less than what they deserve. It is not a great system by any means. So I definitely understand why, totally get it. But it does make it difficult for us when we're trying to help folks, but it's also difficult when it also gives our firm a bad name if we have submitted a candidate to a client who is not that person. So, it makes it difficult sometimes for us as well with that.
Can I also just jump in real quick and say that I know that because you've told me this, but aren't you also trained to pick out the fakes, the catfish when they also are on a video call? Because sometimes you can tell if they're being scripted on the other side of the camera.
Absolutely.
I thought was kind of an interesting, interesting aspect.
It definitely is. It's happened multiple times. There was one time I was on a call with a candidate who only had half of his face, and then the other half was a fishbowl. And
what?
What
is going on?
Yeah, really.
I know. But the thing is he was trying to disguise from the fact that his mouth was moving at a different rate than the sound. So somebody was speaking for him, and he wasn't, because English isn't his first language, so he wasn't comfortable. So someone was speaking for him. So he had to like mask it so you couldn't tell as much that he wasn't the one speaking. So people have found incredibly inventive ways to get around these things. And if you're a recruiter that doesn't really care, that's trying to just get the submissions and move on, you're going to be like, cool, this person's fine enough.
Yeah.
There we go. Moving on.
Or people that will like have someone on the other side of the camera with them, and you can watch their eyes as they look up and will read the answer to the question that you just asked. And they'll just like small be with like cards or like a script, and they'll be following that script instead of actually paying attention to the conversation.
Yeah, like often enough, you'll see them kind of like look up when you ask a question. Or I've found that if I make probably a really poor joke, but if I make a joke that they don't laugh at until like later after someone's kind of explained what was said, then I'm also like, oh, okay.
So is that one of your tricks?
Yeah, it is.
I love it.
I know I say poorly, so maybe they're just not funny jokes, but I also definitely try and I use that way to try and see if it's actually that person.
That's really smart.
There's a lot of people are also very smart. I mean, oh gosh, people have found ways around it for sure. But like, for example, when I evaluate someone's profile, if you have a picture of your LinkedIn that is not you, I'm scrolling past you. I'm not looking at your profile. So if you have a LinkedIn that does not have your picture on it, change that. Put your picture on there, because I will not talk to you. I won't risk it, because it's not worth my time. Not that I'm not willing to try and give you the time of day. It's just a matter of time management at that point. If you don't have your last name, so let's say it was Antonio R, I wouldn't contact you, because a lot of times those candidates are either fishy candidates, or they're candidates that don't have their citizenship. They're in a C2C sort of situation. So often enough, I can't work with those candidates, unfortunately, because our clients don't allow for C2C candidates. So those are some things that I evaluate when I'm just looking at someone's profile. So if you are a junior person and you have a fun picture of your dog or something as your profile picture, definitely change that and put your real face there.
No pet rats.
Yeah.
Well, you know what? We say the same in their portfolio. Like, we want to see what you look like if you would hire you. What do you look like? If you're taking a picture in a bikini, like, clearly you're not going to walk into work like that. But yeah, no picture of the rat.
There have been times where people have had unprofessional LinkedIn photos and they have not been submitted for jobs because of their unprofessional LinkedIn photo. Like that has happened. Not now, to be fair, I think our standards might be a little bit different than other recruiting agencies, but that has happened. If you don't have a professional photo, I've even seen it happen where if someone, those club bands, when you go to the club and they're like, okay, 21 or older, you can get in. When people have had that in their profile pictures, I've seen them not be submitted to positions just based on that. So definitely be vigilant when it comes to your profile photo. But if you are trying to avoid recruiters, you could not have your photo, and that could be helpful for you as well.
Corey, that's for you.
FYI. Oh man. So then I have an advanced search here where I can, put in all kinds of other things. Now, this, I don't really use a whole lot of stuff in here just because this gets very specific. The only thing I use in here is years of experience. So based on the job description and also based on the pay. If the pay is lower, I normally target folks with less experience. So if, let's say it's the same, like 80K job, well, I'm going to pull this way down to like probably more like 5 years. And just based on what I know the client might want, I'm going to move it up to at least maybe 2 or 3. And then I'll update that and then do search. So then that gives me the folks that have those amounts of years of experience, and then I can evaluate profiles based on that. Now, I will say with what we evaluate candidates on, the 2 big things are years of experience and then what kind of technology experience you do have. There is flexibility with years of experience with certain situations, but that is generally what we are looking at. In regards to that, if you're doing contract work or you're doing freelance work, it's a bit different with UX because freelance work is a little not acceptable, but like, for example, if I was working with like a React developer and the last 2 years they spent freelancing, that makes candidates like not as strong of a profile. However, it's a bit different for UX just because that's a part of UX. Like it's freelancing is just something that's more common with what you find with UXers. So that generally doesn't rule people out. However, sometimes credit is not given as much to freelance work as it is, say, for a company. So that might be something to consider when you're putting your profile together as well.
Can you talk a little bit about what you were looking for on a resume of a UX designer who may not have any industry enterprise experience yet, but maybe they have freelance experience or they have contracting experience? Can you talk a little bit about the differences between those and also the like what you would want to see on that resume that's going to make you submit them?
Yes. Okay, first and foremost, I'm going to only spend a little bit of time on the soapbox, but if your picture is in your resume, take it out right now. Don't put your picture in your resume. Just don't do it.
No side-by-side resumes.
Yeah, side-by-side resumes can get a little hairy as well. I get that they're flashy. I get that they show that you can kind of edit in Figma or that kind of thing. Like I get that. But when I scan the resume to put it into our system, which we use a system called Bullhorn, it's how we keep up with candidates, is how we track, what conversations were had, where we keep their notes, their resume, that kind of thing. When I load that into Bullhorn, if you have a highly edited side-by-side resume, your name isn't going to pop up. it won't like pop up into the preloaded application. So if there wasn't a human behind it doing it, they're not going to get your name, they're not going to get your number, they're not going to get a lot of information that is present in your resume. So if you have some of those fancier resumes, I would definitely change that. And the way that I would structure it would be the way that I would look at it and a hiring manager would look at it. And I would start with your name, and then I would put, your summary, your about you, kind of like, this is me, this is what I'm targeting, this is what I've done. I would put that at the top. Underneath that, I would put your skills, what you are comfortable with doing. And then underneath that, I would start with your job experience and then throw your education at the bottom. Doesn't matter if your education is in like fishing or whatever. If you have a degree, put it on your resume, even if it has nothing to do with UX design. The fact that you have a degree makes a big difference with certain companies. They want a degree no matter what. So definitely put your education on there, even if it's unrelated. Now, when it comes to jobs and you're listing out your experience, I find it to be incredibly helpful when candidates not only put what they've done at each job, but they put at the bottom their skills. So like what they used at each job. So sometimes it gets difficult because companies will ask us like, I want this person to have 3 years of experience with Figma. They need to have at least 5 using Adobe. So if I'm just looking at your resume and you haven't clearly laid that out, that could be a reason for me to just discount your resume. And it's not because I don't want to give you a chance. It's just simply time management. Like I have to move quickly. So it's helpful when you have the skills that you use at the bottom of each job that you've had. So I know, well, this job, they've done some of this and this. So they have this many years of experience doing this. Now that comes more into play when you are a software developer. However, it's the same people are going to be looking at UX designers because it's the same realm. So I would structure your resume like that. And please don't put your picture in there. Please don't. I love, pictures. I love the personal part of the process, but it's going to make it more complicated to load. And
I think that's something we see from folks who are coming from other countries, where I think that's a little more actually standard in a lot of cases. But if you're applying for work in the U.S., there are actually there are probably privacy laws or things where companies can't even accept the resume that it's got your picture on it for various reasons, liability reasons and such. So yeah, just if you're applying for work here in the United States, do not put your picture on it for everything that Rachel just said, plus more.
Yeah,
absolutely. And, for when we bring candidates in, we edit their resumes to contain our letterhead. So they are our client, our candidate. So when we edit that to have our letterhead in it, most of the time we take out your photo anyway, so we can fit our letterhead in there. So yeah, that also is a thing that if you have a more complicated resume to edit, that doesn't allow us to put that letterhead with your resume, sometimes that can be a thing as well. But to further expand on that, I know that there's more of like a standard sort of like resume that you can expect from like Asian countries. Like theirs is very thorough. I love looking at that one, but sometimes it can be very overwhelming. So depending on where you are in the world, there can be different resumes for that. Now I will say some of the more specific resumes can often be discounted because they do look like C2C resumes. And that's simply just folks that don't have their green card or their U.S. citizenship, and that makes them a little bit harder to work with for certain companies because they won't accept those candidates. So if you do have a very specific, lots of technologies, lots of things in there, highlighted skills in each job rec, a lot of times you will be discounted as well, even if, that's just the way that you wanted to structure your resume.
Simple is better.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Simple is better. Absolutely. So if you are not putting your portfolio link in your LinkedIn profile, you're also cutting yourself short on that one as well. So for example, let's see, maybe I can find, let's see if we can find me now. Let's pull up him. That might be easier because then we can
I looked at my resume yesterday and I'm like, I'm doing everything that Corey said not to do. It's like
It's
2 years
okay.
old.
Me too. You're not the only one.
So she put
You're
it in her
not alone.
system and it like turned into like an alien language.
Error.
Yeah, it did not
The
scan.
computer exploded.
Yeah, it did. So here's Nino's profile. He's put it on here where I can contact him. So he's put in his email, which is helpful if you are a junior person. If you are a senior, I can take that out. I'll put that in there. But if you are junior, put your email in there. It's very easy to send you job descriptions, that kind of thing. So if I click into Antonio's profile here, it was I can see the most recent recruiter activity. Normally up at the top where you can add email or phone number, you can add this to be seen by recruiters. Often in your case, Corey, most folks definitely take that out because you'll get so many unsolicited calls and emails. But if you are junior, go ahead and put your email in there. Fine if you don't put your phone number, but put your email in there. It is easier to send you job descriptions because there's like a message count or like a word count in LinkedIn. So we can't really send job descriptions as easy in LinkedIn because they will, cut it down and whatever. But so in the summary here, Nino's is a bit different because his is present on his, like the normal LinkedIn. And I'll show you that here in a second. But in your summary, include your portfolio link in here, because that way I can go and look right at it and see, what you've done, what kind of work you've done. This also gives me an example of your experience. I can see what you've done in certain places. I can see how long you've been there. I can also see your education and the skills. That's also pretty important. So make sure you keep those up to date. And I can see your interest, all kinds of things in here. Now, what's different about me, maybe versus other recruiters, is I always send folks a connection. So that means I have to go to their public profile and I come in here and then I always send people, this is where it normally is, but I can send them a connection because for me, it's not so much obviously about the job. Like I want to connect with a person that makes them feel, not like I'm a one and done sort of recruiter. So I go in here and connect with Nino, but this is where I can see, oh, okay, here's his portfolio. And then I can click in and go look at his portfolio. But however, in LinkedIn Recruiter, I can't see that. So unless I go click to his public profile, I wouldn't know that that's there because this is what we work in. So.
So at what point do you connect with the person? When you think they fit the job description, or you just want to get, like, what point would you connect with them?
Great question. A lot of times we cast a wide net to hope, that certain people, somebody will get back to us that wants a job. So the way that I evaluate is based upon years of experience. And then if you have worked in an industry that is similar to what the client is targeting, or if you have the skills. So if, let's say, I was looking at the same 80K job that was targeting Figma and Adobe. Well, I would look on here and I would say, I don't know if Nino has any of that experience. I don't know if I can contact him about that. Do I try? Most of the time, okay, yeah, sure. I'll send him a message. And then I can send the message to a candidate. And that's when I would say, like, hey, I might have something that you're interested in. Let's connect over a phone call.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
But yeah, that's generally how we evaluate folks. Now, I wasn't exactly trained on portfolios, like what to look for, but that's just because I already had some previous experience with Nino. So I kind of knew what to look for as far as portfolios go. But we are looking for streamlined continuity. A lot of times I see folks that let their just personality fly. And I love that, but that distracts from what work you've done. Mm-hmm. So a lot of times we get to see, like, you like walking your grandma's dog in the evenings. That's great. I'm happy for you. That's so good. But we don't need to know that. In these instances, we love personality, but keep it to a minimum. Please really promote your work and what you've done. So when I'm looking at your portfolio, if it's not clear that, okay, this is what I did at XYZ company, this is the project I worked on, or this was my boot camp project. This is what I did. These were the outcomes. This was my thought process. If that's not clear, I will generally throw that out. Or if it looks antiquated and old, I throw that out as well. So less is more. Just like you said, Corey, simplicity is key. Definitely love to see the personality, but reserve that for the contact page. Don't put that in your front page of like, this is my work. Reserve that for after you've brought them in with the work you've done, the projects you've done, and they want to contact you. On the contact page, put your picture. Put that you like walking your grandma's dog in the evening. Sure, do all that there, but don't put it in your front page in your profile.
Got it. Do you also, so you walked us through how you go in and it's like, okay, so today I'm going to find X number of candidates for this role. Do you also get like alerts or something when a seemingly qualified candidate is available? Are you alerted in some way like that?
Unfortunately, no. The only way I know is if you changed your profile to open to work, and I searched right after you did that. It's kind of like a queue. So unless I'm, searching for a while, you'll pop up if it was most recent. So maybe for folks who are falling to the back of the line, switch it and interrupt that algorithm and then put yourself back at the front of the line again. Okay. I would encourage that as well.
That's what I suspected was happening. If your profile has gotten a little stale, right, to just kind of switch, like turn it off for a day or two, and then turn it back on and see what that does. I remember when I was on the market earlier this year, and like we all, we get like messages from recruiters to a couple times a week. Like we all get that, right? Except Antonio, but he's probably lying. But we all get them a couple times a week. And then I turned on my open to work, and my inbox just blew up. Right, that same day, it was just exploded, and I had to turn it off because I couldn't keep up with the messages.
Absolutely. And some people will turn it on for like an hour or a day and then turn it right back off again. So it's just right place, right time. There's a lot of like luck and obviously right place, right time involved with recruiting, especially when it comes to people who are popping on the market and then popping back off real quick. There's definitely a lot of good timing involved with that. Now, I will say if I have saved you to a search, so there are ways where I can save a search. Like I have saved a .NET search where I search for .NET candidates. So if I've saved you on there and you have changed it to open to work, that will alert me. But that's only if I previously saved you.
I see.
That it wouldn't just let me know that you were open to work.
Okay, gotcha.
Now, the biggest thing that I think I would love to let folks know who are maybe more like mid-senior, if you are looking for a position and you are looking for a position to primarily get more compensation, don't tell recruiters what you're paid. Don't do it. Yeah. Tell them that you are interviewing at a certain number. So if let's say you're being paid $80K, well, you want a job for more like 120. Say I'm interviewing at 110K. That tells me as a recruiter, other recruiters are already talking to you, other recruiters are already working with you, they've already submitted for you at a job that's at 110K. If I want to be competitive for you, I need to send you at 110, 115, 120. That's the proper response. Don't tell them what you're paid. Not everybody has good intentions like myself. So I would say I'm interviewing at this number, and that's going to tell them what they need to know. And then you can get your money as well.
Yeah, that is excellent advice. I'm so glad you said that. Not everyone has your best interest in mind, right? Some folks will make you an offer specifically based on what you're making right now, right? Has nothing to do with what the company budgeted. Has nothing to do with what you're expected to do. They just gave you a number that's maybe a little bit more than what you're making now, and that's it, which is a terrible metric to make someone an offer for work. So yeah, I'm so happy you said that. Thank you.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that happens a lot. You know, when recruiters ask you how much you're being paid, they generally are tacking on maybe like 10K, and that's the kind of jobs that they're going to put you for. So, and that's the general recruiter. I think if you were trying to evaluate in a recruiter based upon if they were going to be human-centered, I would ask more questions from the recruiter. I would ask them more about their processes. If you can identify human-centered recruiters, those are the folks that are going to want to work with you. Tell them your how much you're being paid, because, for example, like I had a candidate who was severely underpaid, and I was working with him, and he was like, "Oh, I'm fine with this number," and I was like, "Well, no, because this is the market rate for this number. This is what other people are getting. That's what I want to send you at, unless you're extremely uncomfortable with that. I want to send you at the rate that you're worth." And I ended up getting that individual, I think he got about a 40K raise, because the market is going to allow for that to happen. So in certain instances, that's okay. Now, on the flip side, I have also talked to UX designers who have 1 year of experience and they're looking for 140K, and they live in like Charlotte, North Carolina.
Don't live in Charlotte. You live in Charlotte? It's almost as bad as Boston. Yeah, I live in Charlotte.
Is that where you stay? Are you in Charlotte?
I am in Charlotte, yeah.
I also stayed in Charlotte, so I know. I've been there here, but yeah. So yeah, for example, I'm not going to tell you like, "Hey, I think you're charging too much. I think this might be not congruent with what the market's going to offer you." I'm not going to tell you that. That's not my job. I'm just going to tell you what I have, and if I have something that's going to pay that will allow for years of experience, we'll go for it together. We'll work on it together. But generally, I'm not going to say, "Hey, you're charging too much." Like, I'm not going to say that. I'm going to try and get you what you want. But that in turn is going to also potentially shoot you in the foot for certain opportunities because of the rate that you're charging. But I'm not going to say, "No, that's too much." The way that usually happens for me as a recruiter is we're going to work together on some roles. I'm going to submit you to some things, and then you'll be rejected by those firms based on your pay. It's not going to be me that tells you. And then after you're rejected by so many firms, then that's when they're like, "Okay, maybe let's move it down a little bit." And then I let you make that decision on your own. I'm not going to be the one that tells you that. That's not what I do.
Doing your salary research, that is your job as a candidate, right? I mean, that's your money, that's your future, that's your livelihood. You should be doing that, and you should not be pulling figures out of your butt, right? By any means.
And as much as it is easier to kind of like sidestep these questions and say, "Well, it depends on the role, it depends on, where this company is located," all those things, it's easy to sidestep. But I'm telling you, just say, "I am interviewing at this number," and they will work with you on that, and they won't ask questions.
Nice.
I would say that.
Fantastic.
Yeah. Cool.
All right.
I have a question for you. I'm curious. It might be a silly one, but you can tell me. So have you had a situation where someone actually approached you on LinkedIn that was like, "Hey, I need help. I'm looking for that." Do you do any of that, or you mostly go to them?
A little bit of both. I mostly go to candidates. So I mostly reach out to them. But to give you an example, today I was talking with someone who was a software developer, and they wanted meaningful work. They wanted to work for a company that wasn't just like creating a platform for mattresses, like they wanted to do meaningful work. So we didn't have anything for their particular tech stack. However, we had a company, I guess I can say that, but we have a company we work with called Tobii Dynavox. They're like the world leader in creating devices for people with like hearing and vision impairments to let them live more independent lives. Really cool work that they're doing. So he sounded like someone that would be interested in this. However, his tech stack was for something completely different. So I told him, I was like, send me your resume. I'll write up like a little blurb about why you're interested, why you want meaningful work. Let's just send it to them and see if they have something for you now or in the future, or if they could use your particular skills. Let's just try it. What's it going to hurt? So, but I had approached that person initially to have the conversation. He didn't reach out to me.
Okay.
So yeah, there are instances where I will definitely bend over backwards to try and help somebody find the right fit for them. But normally I only get people like that through referrals. So people I've worked with in the past.
Sounds good.
I was meaningful work. What's wrong with some people? Right? What planet do you live on where you gotta have meaningful work? Gosh.
Corey just
Once
wants
they
world
get it-
domination.
but once they
I
get
mean,
there,
that is true, but still, I mean, I gotta go through a bunch of crap before I get there for sure.
meaningful
I mean-
work is pretty complex design problems. Just gonna
Sure.
point that out.
Oh yeah. I mean, it's like, what do you want more? Your K-pop career to kick off, or your world domination career to kick off?
You know, it's
Corey?
probably going to be the K-pop stuff first, right? I think it'll be, I'll get my name recognition from that, right? And then it won't be such a hard blow when I start conquering cities and such.
Oh, absolutely.
Something, yeah.
Yeah. Once you start dancing in South Korea, it's over.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I'm gonna blow up. I'm gonna blow up for real. It's
You have a
coming.
TikTok. Are you
No,
on
there's,
TikTok?
don't give me
I'm
that.
not part of this conversation. by the way.
Crystal, you're the one teaching him how to dance.
Yeah,
Nope.
she
Silence.
is my choreographer. She is my manager. Yeah,
I never
don't let
said
her-
yes then.
Yeah, don't let her fool you. Yeah, she's working behind the scenes.
She's pulling all the strings.
Yeah, that's true. I'm just a puppet. Yeah. All right. This has been fantastic. This has been eye-opening for me, who has been doing this kind of work for, I don't even want to say anymore because I've been doing this so long, but I've learned a lot here. And if and when I should ever get back on the market, I feel much more empowered now with some of the things that I know. This has been absolutely great.
Amazing. Yeah, I love that. Yeah. Maybe we can do a whole nother segment sometime for senior folks who don't want to be contacted. And I can
I was
show
gonna
you all
say,
the ways.
Yeah.
Rachel
I
just
feel like
gave
it-
away all my secrets for how I stay hidden on LinkedIn.
So the episode should be about you.
Yeah. That's right.
I feel like this I feel like this wasn't enough. Like it was so juicy. I need to talk more to you. Like I need to know more details. Like this was just like 1% of everything, but it was so great. Thank you so much for sharing that with us.
Absolutely. I'm glad I could lift back the curtain and kind of show you what goes on behind the scenes of all the chaos that does happen behind the scenes. So I'm glad you guys found it super helpful. I'm thrilled.
And if I could also say, it just feels really great to be vindicated with all the stuff that I keep trying to tell folks and what we teach and coach on here. And then we have a recruiter that says, yes, everything that they've said is 100% correct. Please do what they say. Thank you for that again.
Yeah, we're not just spitting nonsense. Like
That's right. That's right.
we really do mean it when we say don't put your picture on your resume.
Yeah.
Yes.
We do have some experience in this stuff, right? So it pays to listen a little bit.
Absolutely. You guys are the professionals. You're setting them straight. I'm just here to validate.
Yeah, I'm trying to. Yeah.
So Corey, I guess we know what we're talking about then.
I think so. I mean, between the number of years that we all have all together, I think we know a little bit about a little bit, right?
Yeah.
The next thing is, do people actually go and do the stuff they were telling them to do? That's the other question.
That's up to them though.
Yeah.
Can't do that for them.
Well, all right. Well, Rachel, this has been an absolutely fantastic segment. Thanks for jumping on this call with us and sharing your insights today. We love having you. We will probably like to have you back later if some more interesting stuff comes up that we can chat about. So thanks again. And for everyone listening, we hope you got something interesting from this. I know I did. I think we all did. And we're going to call this segment a wrap. Rachel, thanks again.
Yeah. Thank you guys. It was a pleasure being on here. Thank you so much. I had so much fun.
You got it.
All right. Take care, guys.
All right, my friends, that is going to wrap us up for today. If you are interested in appearing on our show as a +1 guest, there is a form that you can fill out for the opportunity. That is at uxdesignjob.com/podcast. Again, that is uxdesignjob.com/podcast. Hope you've enjoyed this one. We appreciate your support, and please remember that no matter what you do, to always remember to include your +1. See you next time.